Yes, big man. I think we are good to commence as we wait for the rest of the guys to join in. Yeah,
All right, do I go ahead to get started?
yeah. You want? Let me share my screen such that you share yours, possibly.
All right.
Okay, let me just stop presenting.
All right, let me know once you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So, hi everyone. Good, good evening. I think it's evening here. My name is Nehemiah Emmanuel, and um, I think the best way to introduce myself right now is to say I am currently a Microsoft Learning Student Ambassador. I found a startup called Academics. That is a platform for designed for student academic success in Nigeria. And I'm excited actually to be here. It's my first time speaking and having a speaking engagement actually, all the way from Nigeria to Uganda. So I'm really excited to be here. And it's been a very long while. I took a break from speaking, so I'm actually excited to be back. Um, so today we are talking about Git, and I think Git is literally a breath of life for developers, if I would put it that way. We cannot survive without oxygen. Would I use oxygen? I think water. So while you may be able to go some days without water, you definitely need water to survive. And I think the same experience can be said of Git. In fact, it's one of the very first things you should be introduced to starting your career in software development, in web development, and yeah, it's that important. And so I over the years have been able to do a lot of things, mostly because I learned rigorously by having a problem to solve and then trying to solve it. So much of my experience from using Git comes from me breaking stuff and then having to try to fix the stuff, especially with Git. And so it has allowed me over time to learn, to go very, very in depth, to learn advanced commands that I may only use once in a year, for example. But that one time when I do need to use it, I know that this something like this says this, and then I can use it. So, what is Git? Git is a version control system founded by Linux Torvalds in 2005. And by version control system, um, any reward I can't find a real world example I could use to apply to what a version control system is, but the easiest way I think I'll be able to do that is by giving us an example of something that we would come across every day. So once in your life you would have created a file, a document, and saved it on your computer or on your phone, and when you go to edit that document, you sometimes do not want to override what was already in the document. You just want to create a new version of it. So you go to either you create a copy of it and then rename it to what you want to and then edit it. Or after editing it, you save it as a new copy and then you save it. And so, in essence, for developers, what Git allows us to do is to prevent all those manual process of having to, if I do create a code base, a repository with a simple hello world file with HTML, and now I want to add something else to it, for example, um, I don't need to go and create a copy of that file and then write hello world, my name is Nehemiah and save it and then do the same and then do the same and then do the same. And so that's mostly because Git allows you to track changes once you initialize Git in a repository. Initialize means once you've added Git to that repository. So once you've done that, Git is immediately aware of Git is immediately aware of what the files are in your repository, your code base, and then you can start tracking those changes. So the moment you make a change, as simple as adding a white space to a line of code, Git recognizes that change. And if you did need to, for example, go back to the previous version of what it was, you can do that. You can save the current state it is by committing it, that we'll call as commit. But more importantly, that is the benefit that Git applies for us individually as developers. When it comes to working across a couple of persons, I'm not the one who's working on the file. I have somebody else who's working, somebody else who's working. If Git was not existing, the way I would have been able to do that is when I finish working on something, I would have to zip that file or create it, keep it in a folder, and then send it via email or WhatsApp or Dropbox or Google Drive, whatever it is, to the second person who is working on it. And that person would have to open the file and compare it against what he's working on, and then try to now, oh, this is what you've done, this is what I've done, let's meet this together. Once it's done, he send it back to me. And you can already see that that's a very, very manual process, a very, very laborious process. If we're using that method of collaboration, the speed and the rate at which we've been able to iterate in software development over the past 15 years wouldn't have been possible, because it just wouldn't make sense for you to have a team of 1,000 people, say are working at Google or Microsoft, for example, where everybody has to share files in folders or in single files across teams like that. It's not efficient, and definitely you are going to come across errors. So Git allows you to collaborate in with other persons or with teams seamlessly without having to lose track of what you're already working on, be able to reconcile the changes between what you've worked on and what somebody else also has worked on. And it enables a whole new opportunity basically for collaboration and then for continuous integration. So by continuous integration, I mean when I finish working on a project on my laptop and I want this project to now be accessible to everybody on the internet, I have to deploy that project to a server, a cloud server somewhere. And in the days of, for example, if you use PHP, even till now, some people still do that. I would have to go into the web server hosting I am using, go to something we call cPanel, and then upload the files from a laptop down there, and then that will now serve the files over the internet. But then if I need to make a change to that, I would have to repeat the same process. So I would have to go back, make the change on my laptop, go back to cPanel, log in, and then re-upload those files again. And that's just a very inefficient way of having to release features or release changes to your end users who are going to be using it. So what Git also helps you do now is be able to just automate the process of having to deploy your code from your laptop down to your end users actually. So once you connect your Git repository to the cloud server where you are going to deploy your code and you deploy for the first instance, it's pretty much set up actually from there, unless if you want more advanced configurations. But then what I can do is on my laptop, I can finish writing code, test it out, and do Git push to main. And once it gets to the main branch, Git automatically redeploys from that main branch to my cloud server. And that's what I have to do. I don't have to worry about going to now re-upload my files myself. So Git is a version control system that allows you to track and efficiently work on your code base, download your file, download your changes, allow you to collaborate with other people, and allow you to seamlessly deploy your project, your code base to end users over the internet. And so we are starting from the scratch, the very basics. And this is GitHub. And if you've not heard of GitHub before, GitHub is a platform built on Git. You should not mistake the both of them. Git is a technology that is a version control system. So on its own is an entity, is a technology. And what a technology means is that I may not be the only one who has access to the technology. We have electric cars today, and it's not just one company who makes electric cars. So the same technology is available to every company. That's what Git is. Git is a version control system, and GitHub, on the other hand, is a platform that allows you to work with Git. So it's built on Git, and you can call it a version control system integration platform, if I'll put it that way. And GitHub is not the only platform that allows you to work with Git. We have Bitbucket by Atlassian. These are largely actually the two largest you are going to find. But GitHub is way more popular because I think the name looks integrated. Git, GitHub, so everything just kind of flows together. So I'm going to be starting a with the introduction to Git, and I'm going to be using a Git repository. Hi, can you guys hear me? If I continue.
Yes, yes, we are following you clearly.
All right. So I am going to be using a Git repository. Give me a moment. And what the repository is, literally, is any folder that has Git in it is called the repository. That's the simplest way. So to give context, let me open up something on my laptop. Go to documents, downloads. So I have a ton of folders like this, and what's what this means is that any folder like this that has stuff inside it is a folder. I keep files inside it. But then the moment this folder has Git initialized in it, it becomes a repository. So repository is any folder that has files with Git inside it. So with Git there, it can track changes that are happening within that folder to all the files, all the folders that are within that parent folder. That's what the repository is. So this repository was created to teach Git in 2022 by myself and some other tutors during a bootcamp. It's public, so I am going to include the link in the chat so you can follow along or just use it actually to continue learning if you need to. Let me drop that in the chat. All right, so we are going to come here to start. And yeah, let's skip all this and then go to begin now. So first thing you want to do is to install Git if you don't already have Git installed on your computer. And there are different setups for which operating system you are using. If you're on Windows, I would recommend that you go with the installation for Windows here. If you're on Linux, I would also recommend you follow here. And if you're on Mac, there's also an instruction for that. So once you've been able to set up Git, it's pretty easy actually. And it's rare if you don't have Git installed. If you're using Mac and Linux, you should already have Git installed. For Windows, from Windows version 2023
Yes.
or 2022 and above, you should already have Git installed. But if you don't already do that, just follow the instructions and then get to set up Git there. So just go ahead with following the instructions and then set up Git. I don't want us to waste too much time here, so we have time to go across every other thing. But once we are done installing that, then next we can get here. So I already explained what Git is, so we don't have to go through this again. And I already explained what GitHub is, so you can just go through it if you need to get a bigger picture basically of what it means. But then we also don't need to go with that. Why Git and GitHub is necessary for developers? I have just explained all of that. So let's also continue. And okay, so briefly, let's touch on GitHub for students, what we call GitHub education. So GitHub education is a branch, if I'll put it that way, but is a part of GitHub that's focused on students like you and I who are currently enrolled in institutions, to be able to access real world developer tools that are otherwise expensive to us. So if I needed to, like, for example, get access to these, they are very, very expensive. So quickly, let me just give an overview of that, and then you could see. All right, sorry. Just go to education.github.com. So once you do that, you should be able to apply with your GitHub account and your institution to confirm that you're actually a student, and then go ahead to enjoy the benefits that GitHub education offers. Now, some of the benefits here. Let's quickly do that. Slash students. So I just want to quickly show us what the benefits are for students, and I this. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to home. Sorry, slash this slash benefits. And so this basically should show us what's what features basically Git has that are valuable to us. Um, looks like, oh, I have to re-verify my students. All right, so let me do this quickly. I don't think I can access that without being logged in. But in your time, I think you should be able to just explore what GitHub benefits, what GitHub for Education, sorry, offers, and what the benefits you stand to gain. It really helped me personally in my own career when I got started out. Access to things like front-end mentor, educative, a free domain name, free hosting. There are lots and lots of benefits there. So in your own time, just explore it and then sign up and then verify your students' status and then get access to that. But meanwhile, let's go back. So let's come to understanding what GitHub terminologies are, and also understanding what Git terminologies are, and then we'll go into seeing how to set up Git for your project locally, and then getting started. If you don't have a GitHub account, I would recommend that you go to github.com and create a new account, and then that's all. You can just get started from there. So let me give you the moment. Okay, I think I'm having lagging internet. Um, so while I'm waiting for that to load, I am going to go ahead and show us how to get started with a blank repository. So to do that, I'm going to start opening a new window here. I'm using Visual Studio Code. I would recommend you use that. It has tight integration with Git and GitHub already, so you don't have to stress over some manual things. But in the meantime, let's open a new window. I'm going to minimize this, which I use for work. Um, so first thing, I'm going to add a folder to my workspace, supposedly. And to do that, I would create a new folder and call it UICT underscore Git. So let's create that and then let's add that to the repository. So once I do that, open here, I have a blank folder. I'm going to create a basic hello world with HTML. So I'm going to create an index.html file here, um, style.css, although I really can't remember plenty CSS right now. But yeah, let's do this. So um, doc type HTML and simple. Do we need a heading? Do we? I think we do. Um, let's call this. Right, I think that's enough for the heading. And let's create a body. And here, let's add a simple H1. Let's say hello world. Oh yes, let's add style. So our index, it's our style CSS here. And in here, let's give our body. How do you write CSS style again? Is this correct? I actually really don't know right now.
Yeah, no, actually, yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, I
yes,
remember
yes,
that.
yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. All right, so let's give our body. Um, let's make it black actually, and then set our H1 to have
You could
color.
zoom in a bit.
Ah, okay, sorry. I like to use small screens. Okay, so we have a basic HTML file here. We have a basic file here also, and now to initialize Git, there are a number of ways actually I can do this here. For one, I like using terminal, which is writing code a lot. So I would actually just go to terminal, open this up, and then do git init, and then that initializes git inside this repository. But otherwise, you can use UI, you can use GUI, graphical user interface, for example. You can download GitHub Desktop, like a UI application for both Mac, Linux, or Windows. And I don't think I have it. I think I did remove it. Yeah, I don't. So, but you can actually use that, and if you have that, open up your repository and initialize Git there, and then get started. It's a graphical user interface, so it's pretty much explanatory. But I'm going to be using terminal here because I love using terminal. And to do that, inside VS Code, I'll open terminal here, go to new terminal. I'm going to close this up. And I have a terminal open for this folder I'm currently in. And what I'm going to do is do git and then init. That's all. And I see initialize empty git repository in this is my path here. And automatically what you can see here is that I have this U, and that means these files are currently untracked. It means that Git is inside the repository now, but it has not started tracking anything yet. Now, the best way to explain this is um, I want to capture, I have an event and I want to capture the event, like bring a photographer to capture it. Now, the first thing is bringing a photographer there. And when the photographer comes there, he has his video camera on and he sets it up, but he has not clicked record yet. The camera can literally see everybody. I mean, if I point at people, I'm going to see the people in the camera, in camera screen. But if I ask you later on, can you show me a recording of that? You can't provide that because you did not record it at all. So that's exactly what is here. Git is
What's up?
inside this repository.
I think
It's aware of the file that are here. If I create a new file, let's create a new main.js file.
it's muted.
I still have it as on
Did you
track
finish?
here. If I delete this
When?
file, for
Long
example,
time
I
ago.
cannot, there's no way I
It's
can
kind of.
recover it unless if I do Ctrl Z, for
But
example, or if I make new
stay.
changes here and all of this stuff.
What's up?
Git is not aware about what is actually here. It's just aware about the file that are inside my repository, but they're not started tracking them yet. So for me to start tracking the changes here, I have to first of all create a snapshot, which is a reference point that Git is going to start
I'm
tracking
not
from.
feeling bad.
So if
But I
I
already
at an event,
see.
as long as the camera is at the event and activities are going on,
Frank, I've come to look for the other
let's
one.
say it's a wedding event, for example. The groom has arrived, the bride has arrived, the
You
guests
there?
have arrived. Um, all of those
Right now.
moments that are there that are currently going on,
Hey,
I can
baby.
only remember them if I
You're
have a
muted.
very good memory that oh, I
I'm
know when the
hosting
groom
you.
arrived, I know when the bride arrived actually. But then the
Can I
moment the
host you?
camera starts recording, every activity that happened
For developers.
before that instance
Play cookie. Right,
is not
right.
recorded on
What do you
these
want?
files, but for it to actually now start tracking the
I
files,
should
you
also
have to
cookie
create a
with China.
snapshot. So the time that this is the time I first started
I'm
tracking it.
putting Mukena and
And
tomato.
for me to
Yeah,
do
before I
that,
close.
I would have to first of all
What's okay?
stage the files. Now, what staging means is what are the files that I want to track?
The packed one.
What are the
What have it?
what are the things inside this repository that I'm telling Git to track? And usually, if you're starting a new repository, you would stage all the files here, and that is doing something like Git adds and full stop. Now, this add dot full stop means everything inside the repository. If I want to specify what are the files exactly that I want to track, I would include the name of the file, like index.html, like this. And when I do this, Git would only now start tracking my index.html file here, and that's why it is A here. Index has been added, so Git is now tracking this HTML file. Let me make this larger. But you see the remaining two files here, Git is not still tracking them, it's just aware about them. Now, if I make changes to my HTML file, you can see this visual indicator here letting me know that I added a new line, for example, and that's because Git is now tracking this file. And here I can see that this changes to M, which means this file. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Except that the internet is kind of like, should I say, it's glitching a bit. So
Oh,
I think it would be just an issue of bandwidth. So I think it would be good if you muted the screen. Like, I mean, you cut off your camera.
all
Yes.
right.
Yeah, your
All right.
camera, your screen. No, like your screen, like your camera. Yeah, thank you. Then with that, I think we shall only concentrate on
All right.
the sharing. It won't utilize much bandwidth.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Frank.
Okay, thank you, bro.
Okay, so let me. I don't know if you guys already heard much of what I said, but let me try to go back so that we can like get everything I've just said. So again, I was making reference to the fact that from Git init just simply initializes this. So again, remember that this was a folder until we initialized Git init and then became a repository. So it's now a Git repository. Git initialize empty Git repository in my file location. And I was saying, now that Git is aware of the files here, it is only just aware of the file. It is not yet tracking what is going on inside its files yet. And for us to do that, we have to tell Git, give Git a reference point, which is now I want to start tracking this file or start tracking all the files that are inside this repository. And then from that moment on, Git can now start tracking every change you make to that file. If you delete the file, if you rename the file, if you add new code to the file, if you remove some code, everything going on can now be tracked. But until you ask Git to do that, it is simply just aware of the file that are there without doing anything on them. So the way to do that I mentioned is by using in terminal the git add command, and I can simply do git add and full stop. And what this will do is initialize stage every file that is inside my repository. But if I want to specify the files exactly that I want to initialize, I want to stage, sorry, then I could just simply mention the name of the file by typing in the file here, and that's what I did for the index.html file. Now, if I create, let's say it's in a folder, I have a folder called styles, STYLES, for example, and inside it I create a dev.css file and I create another file called prod.css, for example. And if I want to just now stage this folder, I would simply do slash /styles and sorry, let's add a full stop to mention that that's what we have. And now Git is now aware of now tracking this folder specifically. So you can either just reference the name of the file directly, or you can just reference a folder if you have a folder you want Git to track. But usually, I mentioned if you're starting a new Git repository, once you start a new project, a new code base actually, one of the reference things you do is just initialize Git. And once you do that, you would usually just do the git add and full stop, and that's all. Initialize every single thing inside the repository, and now you can get started from there. But now, let's say we have an environment variable file that we don't want Git to track. So while we initialize everything, it's recommended that you just initialize everything you stage everything when you get started. There are certain files that we don't want to share, both on GitHub or with some other persons, or when we eventually deploy the project. For example, those kind of files could be um, your .env file that contains the environment variables that you are going to use. So, for example, I have a .env file here, and you can see that this file is currently untracked. So Git is aware that I've added a new file, but it's not tracking changes in that file yet. So if I want to let Git to start tracking this, I will do Git, for example, add all, it will add everything, or I will just simply do .env and it will start tracking that file. But I don't want Git to do that. I want it to track every other file inside this repository except the .env file. So how do I do that? Sorry, let me bring this out here, not inside the house. How do I do that? There's something called the .git ignore file, which is where I can define files, paths, folders that I don't want Git to track. So we do that by creating it as .git ignore.
What is it?
And now this file is going to be
What?
committed. You can see it has this symbol here. So this is the Git file. And I can do git add. Let's not do that first. So what do I want to do? I want to exclude this .env file from being tracked. I want Git to be aware about it, which means Git knows the file is here, but it's not going to track it. And I'm going to see this U here. Git is simply just going to ignore the file like as if it's not inside the repository. That's what I want Git to do. So how do I do that? I add the name of the file specifically here. So I will do .env, for example. And once that is done, you can see that U, for example, here has left. So Git is now ignoring this file from being tracked. It's literally just like it doesn't know the file is inside this repository. That's what it does. Let's say I have a folder. Let's copy this folder, for example. Let's paste it here. Let's say I want to also tell Git to not track this specific folder. Let's say it contains things like your node modules, for example, and I want to exclude it from being tracked. I would also simply just define it now to reference a path dot slash and then the name of the folder. So styles copy this way. And I'm telling Git here to ignore this file. Sorry, let me rename it so that we can properly do that. So there's the styles underscore copy. Let's rename it here also. So now I'm telling Git that I do not want it to track this file, this specific folder here. Sorry, let me remove this. I'll just leave that a slash here. So slash and then slash indicates that this is a folder. Now Git is no longer going to be tracking, Git is now going to be ignoring this specific folder. So now we've learned that to get started, I would have to initialize Git in my repository first, in my code base, by doing Git init. And then next, I want to tell Git to start tracking the files that are inside my repository. And that's by, first of all, staging them. So I do git add full dot and full stop, and it starts tracking every file inside my repository. Or if I just want to mention the specific file it should track, I would include the name of the file. And if I want to exclude certain files from, I want Git to ignore certain files at all. Don't track them, don't do anything, just literally behave like as if that those files doesn't exist. I would create a Git ignore file, and I will define the name of those files or the folder that I want Git to ignore and to start doing that. So now let's tell Git to start tracking our Git ignore file because we need it to. And that's it. So it has been added. It's tracking this. And now let's make certain changes. So I would now let's say I want to add a new text here and call it P. Here, say this is a paragraph, for example. Now I can see this little green bar at the side here, and that tells me that This is a change that I added. So previously this was not here, now it is here, and that's because Git knows the previous state of the file compared to the current state of the current working state of it. And comparing the both of them, it knows that I have added a new line, and this is the line I have added. So this is how Git enables you to track changes. Um, but next, this is just one part. Now, if I want to save a certain state in history, which is like a timestamp, for example. So I want Git to be aware that I want to create a certain snapshot of at the point I have done this. Let's say I finished working on my project currently. I've defined the styles, and this is all I am done. Or this is a specific feature. I've built the home page. Now, the way I'm going to do that is by committing it. You can commit files just like you can stage only certain files or the repository. You can also do the same thing for committing. You can commit a single file, or you can commit the entire of your repository or a folder specifically, just by referencing the name of it. So now what a commit does, let's bring this down to like real life instance. Let's use the analogy of a photographer at a wedding ceremony. Now, when you start recording the events, I may not want to record the entirety of the event actually, because in editing, I want to create a kind of edit. So I want to show this is the time when the bride arrived, this is the time when the groom arrived. Maybe there are certain activities in between I don't want to show, like loitering or something like that. I just want to cut those parts out. And so, what would I do? Once the groom arrives, I'm recording when the groom arrived, and once they are done, they get inside the church. I stop the recording, or I pause the recording at that moment. The moment when I pause the recording, for example, is a commit. So it's a certain timestamp, the time lapse I just stopped basically. And then once I want to record on that activity, for example, the bride is now coming after the groom has come in. I can start recording again. And once that is done, I can pause. And so when I'm going back to edit, it's now neatly arranged for me where I can see this is the time when the groom came in, this is when the bride came in, and I can now use that to do what I need to do post production. So the same example, the same analogy applies here, where um so yeah, I just deleted the file here, and you can see that this track the fact that I removed this file, and I can copy deleted file or revert this change. If I revert this, it simply just undoes what I previously did, which is restore the file that is here. So now I want to create a snapshot of what's of this single file here, and I'll do that by commit as I mentioned. And the command for that is git commit and then your message. So git commit, you have to add a message. A message lets you yourself, Git, maybe somebody else who comes across the repository know what exactly happened at the time you made this commit. So for in our instance here, let's say I finished. This is me. I'm done building fits. Maybe as the future, for example, build homepage. And you can see that Git knows that I had 6 files changed, 23 insertions, which is changes are included here. And then it created, this is the first time actually this is happening. So it created the Git ignore file. This is the very first commit I am making. So that's why you see it in create mode. Created Git ignore, index.html, CSS, main.js, style.css, styles.dev, where you can see that it did not create anything inside the styles copy or the .env file because it's ignoring those files literally. And so, but we also note something that this index.html file still has this modified command, even though we just committed it. And that's because we had previously staged this file, and by staging, Git is aware of the state at which it was before. But when we decide to commit it, we did not stage it again. So Git is simply just aware of what are the changes that we made so far. But we did not now stage it again to say, oh, I have made certain changes. Now, this change, this is the current state of the change that I want to commit this current change. And because I did not stage that file, it is still showing me that this is modified here. So to do that, before you make a commit, you have to stage the file that you're currently working on, or the folder, or the entire repository, as the case may be. So I will do git add dot, and this stages everything. So now I see modified. This is gone, and I can redo that
It's here.
git commit. And let's say here instead I
We are good. We are good.
added change from index file, and now I'm saying one file change,
Good, my
one
man.
insertion, which is where I made adding this new
Out of
paragraph,
bracket.
for example,
This place is
and
always
everything
cool
is
and warm.
committed. So I have a clean slate working repository now, and Git is now aware about a certain snapshot. Now, for me to see what are the
Yeah,
snapshots, what are
that
the
file is
commits I
good
have
though.
made so far, I can
Supposed to be
do
a bit
some
big,
git
but I cannot
log,
fail to mute. My screen is enough.
and here you can see
Like,
that the two commits we made, build homepage is here, as well as added change from index file is also here. So these are the comments I have made so far, and Git is aware about them. Now, let's say we want to change the style of what our project looks like. Now, I don't want it to be black anymore. I want it to be red instead, and I want the color of the text here to
yes,
be blue, for example.
going to moves.
This goes without saying that this is a very terrible color design. I would not recommend
You're
you to
paying
do
almost
this.
5,000
But
transfers.
so let's even look at what our file looks like. So this is in so let me open this up here. Um, UIC to Git and index.html. So this is what our file looks like. Simple, like this. And let's come back to it. Now I've made it red and I've made it blue here also. And again, remember that if I want to now commit this change, Git is aware of the files here. And for quick reference, you can come to the Git tab here, click on your file, and see a side-by-side comparison of what are the things you've changed from the last time that this file was committed. So Git tracks from the last time the file was committed. So these are the changes I have made so far. I changed it from black, which is I deleted this line, to red, and I changed it from here white to blue. These are the changes I've made so far. So I can also easily, instead of using the command, the terminal here, do my staging and my commits, everything actually from this place here, from source control is embedded into Visual Studio Code already. So for example, if I want to stage this file, I'm preparing for a commit, I want to commit this file, but I have to stage it first. You will see that if you try to commit, let's say I changed style for body and heading. If I try to commit without having any stage files,
I respect.
it automatically stages the
Respect.
file and then
I
commits
respect
it.
people's food.
That's what it just
You
did.
never know that food is
So
very minimal.
so far I have worked
When
everything.
you go
Everything
to
I've
church
done
this
has been
morning,
on my laptop. Now I want to push this to a version
you
GitHub, for example.
you
If I'm
got to
using
find
GitHub, which is create a new repository there
someone has not
and
eaten,
keep it
starving,
there.
and the food is little, and
So
you also not
that's
eat,
that's
and you
one of
come and
also
eat from
that's
you.
another benefit of using GitHub and Git, and that's if
I
I
can't
do lose my
accept that.
laptop right now, for example, my hard drive crashed, something happened,
See?
I cannot access this repository because it's just local on my laptop. So I need to push it to a remote repository, and that is on GitHub. So to do that, I would
And
come
that's
to
the email.
GitHub. Um, let me try and loading this again. Okay, so everything we just talked about here are here. All the git states I just mentioned, what modified means, staging a file, committing a file, git init, git add, what git commit is. Now we are coming to git push, which is what I just talked about. Is everything has been local so far, and now I want to move that to a remote repository so that I can be able to collaborate with others. So if somebody else wants to work with me on this project, they cannot do it because the
It's
laptop,
very easy
the
to say.
code base is currently on my laptop only. I would have to put it on GitHub or put it on Bitbucket, for example, and then they can now collaborate with me from there. So we use the git push command to do that if you're working in terminal, and
No,
we'll
no
also
one has
come to these other
loved
commands
TV more
later
than
on.
I did.
But for now,
No one
let's
has
create a
ever
new
loved TV
repository.
more than I
So
did.
I'm going to go to
At home, they knew me.
um,
TV guy. I spent the whole night watching.
now I'm going to come to create new. Alternatively, let's say you're on github.com. Just go to github.com, for example. You should see all of this here. And you can come to new and then create a new repository. And let me name this repository the same thing I named it as it was locally, which is UICT underscore git. Is that what it's named? Yes. And I can give a description of what this repository is. So, um, introduction to Git on GitHub. Now, I can choose to make my repository public or private. If I make it public, anyone on the internet can see the content of my repository. If I make it private, only myself and people who I give access to it specifically can access this file. So I'm going to keep it as private so we can test out what the features are. And these other things here are optional. A README file is a file that describes your repository. And let me give context. If we come back to our bootcamp here, this file that is here, when I open up a repository, that gives me information about what is inside this repository. That's called a README file here. So a README file lives at the roots of your repository, which is at inside the repository itself. It's not embedded inside any folder. It's in the repository as it on its own. That's what the README file is. So I don't want to initialize the README file.
I'm not
And
seeing them.
to add git ignore, I already have a git ignore file created here. But let's say you are starting a new repository from scratch for the very first time, and you've not done that
Let
locally.
me
You're
see.
starting with creating it on GitHub
Many
first
times, many
before you
songs,
now
many
start
artists.
working on it locally.
What?
You can add a git ignore file for certain programming languages you're working
He's
with.
a pastor.
So there are a set of common files that are always added to git ignore depending on the programming language you're working with. And I use, for example, HTML.
Just
Um, sorry, HTML is, let's say I'm working with Python, for example, and I add Python here. This would add a git ignore file with the common types of files that are always added to git ignore for people who work with Python programming language. That's what it does. So for now, we're not using anyone, so we're going to keep it at none. And a license is describes what are the permissions that people who come across a repository are able to do with the repository. Do they have the rights to modify your code? Do they have the right to use your code for commercial purposes? Do they have the right to whatever it is? A license
I don't
defines
know what
what
to do
that
with my
is.
phone.
Now we're not interested in doing that. We are going to keep it as none. And now let's create a
It's
repository.
almost 9. You can see the
So
replay
now this
says.
is done. And right off, you can see that I can add the collaborator here by clicking add invite collaborator. Mhm.
Foods.
And I can choose who I want to add, for example, by searching with their full name on GitHub, their email
Fufu.
address, or their username here. So
Fufu.
once you do that, let's use an example. Let me use a friend of mine. Let's say I want to add Sophia here. I would then this sends her an invite, and now she can get an invite to join this repository, and then she now has access to the repository. But yeah, let's go back to our code. Now, right off, there are two ways to now start using this repository. Remember that we just created this repository on GitHub,
Hey, what?
and it's very similar to when we created a very empty folder here before we started adding any file at all.
How?
So if I have not created any repository here before, what I can do is just go to GitHub, create it there for the very first time, once I am done, I would simply just copy these commands here, come to my laptop here, create a blank folder, um, and then enter those commands, and that's all. Actually, I'm set up. But then I've already set up a repository locally here. So what I want to do simply is to now link this local repository on my laptop to this repository on GitHub here. So this is, I'm going to follow this guideline here, which is push an existing repository from the command line. Now, to do this, I have to first run this command, which is git remote add origin, and then a link to the GitHub repository, which is this .github.com/devgenix/this, and .git lets you know that it's a repository. So I'll have to add this. This second command here is not compulsory. This is simply just renaming the branch to main if it is not already main. But we can tell that it is main because if you look here, you will see main. But more importantly, you can get a very quick information, quick glance into your repository by doing git and then status. So here I can see I'm already on branch main. There's nothing to commit and my tree is clean. Let's say if I added something else randomly, let's say I added p and this, for example, to my style.css file here. When I do git status again, I can see changes not staged for commits yet. And I modified my style.css file. So this just gives you a quick glance into what is currently going on in your repository. If I also, for example, modified my HTML file by adding another paragraph, for example, and I click again, I will see that I have modified my index.html file. So Git status is a quick way to get insight into what's going on in the repository easily. But also, if I come to this tab here, I can also see this here. So if I click here, these are the two files that are not yet staged for commits yet. And if I collapse them, I can see side by side. If there's enough space, or you can see side by side what was the previous version of your file here, what is the new version of your file here, so you can see the changes that have been made immediately. But once it's not, if there's not enough space, then you just see it like this collapse in this view. So let's come back here. And this last command, git push origin, is what now takes the content of my repository here, carries it from here, and pushes it, which is like sends it to this remote server. So once I do that, all the files that Git are currently tracking would now be here. So let's do that actually. So let's do git remote at origin simply and enter. Now this is done, and the next command would be git push u means upstream, which is I'm pushing upwards to this repository. Origin lets you, it's simply the repository you have on is considered the source of origin, because that is the repository where you can always make reference to if somebody else is working with you. For example, if you have 4 developers working with you, you cannot consider what you have on the other developer's computer to be the source of origin, because you don't know what is currently going on, what they are working on. So one single repository has to be the source of origin, where you can now either merge new code into, for example, or reference what is already existing and compare it to what you already have. So the repository you have on GitHub is considered your source of origin. So I'm pushing upstream to origin on branch main. This is the branch that is here. We only have one branch created, and a branch is like a copy of something. If I have a memory card, a flash drive, for example, and I need to make a copy of it, for example, I would put in a computer, bring another flash drive, plug it in, copy the content from there to here, so it's now duplicated. So easily, I can add something else, for example, to the content of one flash drive, but the other one doesn't have it. Now, for me to sync with it, I would have to put them back all together and copy the content from the other flash drive to the second one. So what a branch allows you to do on GitHub is you can seamlessly work on new features. For example, the main branch is usually the branch that is deployed to your end users to production on your cloud platform is usually the main branch you do. But if I want to work on a new feature and I want to be able to push to GitHub without having that code pushed to my users on the main branch, I would create a new branch. Let's call it let's say I want to add a login page, for example. So I'll call it future login or login branch, whatever name you want to add it actually, we would get to that. And then once I switch to that branch, I can now do all the work I want to do there and push to GitHub. Now, when I push to GitHub, it's going to push to that branch. It's not going to push to my main branch. It doesn't affect my users who are currently using it on the internet, for example. So once I am done working on that branch, I can now copy the changes by merging the branches together. So what I will do is take the changes from that future branch, put inside the main branch, and then deploy that. And so that feature can now become available to your end users. So because we only have one single branch, and that's usually the main branch once we create a repository, this is the branch that we're pushing it to. So let's copy this and let's do git push your origin. So now we can see that branch main, which is our local branch here, is set to track from origin main, which is the branch that we have on GitHub that is considered our source of origin. So if we come back here and we refresh this page, we can now see the content of our repository here. So remember that this styles is currently being tracked. That's what we have here. Our git ignore file, our index.html, main.js, and style.css are all here. But you will also note that our .env file, because we are not tracking that in our git ignore file, is not here. Same thing as our styles copy file, it is also not here. So as long as the file is being ignored and is inside git ignore, it's not going to be pushed. Nothing is just going to remain local on your computer only. Git is not going to track it, you're not going to push it. So now we've created a repository, we've gone through staging files, committing them. Now we've looked at pushing to GitHub. So you can invite somebody else. You can go to settings if you need to add somebody else to this repository. Go to collaborators and then add somebody, and the person can now have access to start working on this file with you. So let's go back to home. Now let's look at branches. So again, branches are a copy of your code that allows you to work in an isolated environment away from other branches. So you can do whatever you want to do just within that branch. So I can either create a branch on GitHub here, or I can also create this through terminal. So we are going to do the both of them actually, so you can see what that means. So to create a branch, I would come to branches here. I'll go to new branch. I would enter the name of the branch. Let's say future one. And the source is where do you want what content, which branch do you want to copy its contents to the new branch you are creating. So if we had more than one branches and I want to copy from future 5, for example, I will select future 5 here. And this new branch will be created with the exact same content of the origin branch I am creating it from. But now we only have one branch called main. So we would create from main and then we create a new branch. So now, once that is done, I can copy the name of this branch here, like this. I can rename a branch if I need to. I can create a new pull request on it. We'll come to pull request later on. But yes, let me come to my local, and now I want to check into that branch. I want to switch from this main branch into that future branch. So already you see that Git has synced with remote. So I can see my origin future one branch here. So I can simply just do that by clicking on this, and now I am inside future one branch, and it's as simple as that. So whatever changes I make here, let's add something else to P here. Let's add border. Yeah, let's add a border here, for example. Now, once I am done here, I want to also commit this. I can simply just again come back here. These are the changes I have made. This and that paragraph, this and that paragraph. So note that we have not staged these files previously, so they are not inside the content of main. So now what do I want to do? Add a new commit message and say added new paragraph. And now I'm going to commit, and sync change means push this commit to the branch we are currently on. So click on this and it simply just pushes the content of this to future one branch on GitHub. So now once I click on future one branch and go to style.css, I would see that this border I just added here. But now if I decide to switch to main branch here and I open this style.css, those changes I made are not here because I only made them in, I pushed that to future one branch. So now how do we now copy the content of what is inside future one? Let's say I worked out, that was the new feature I worked on, and I want to now merge that change into the main branch. I will do that by creating a pull request. That's what it meant. So because this main branch is the default branch, whenever code is not inside this branch and is in other futures, you can create a pull request from that branch against the main branch. So your main branch is always, the default branch is always the source of truth. It's always the single branch that is considered as the all-knowing. Actually, it must have the most up-to-date code. Actually, it's where every other references basically come from. So I would create a pull request, and a pull request is simply just I want to copy changes. I want to merge new code from this branch into this branch. And here you can see that the base branch is the branch that you want to put changes inside. You want to copy the changes to the base branch. Now the compare branch is the branch that has the new code, the new changes that you want to copy. That's called future one branch. So if you have other branches, for example, you can easily just switch if you want to use a different branch. But we only have these two branches here. So a title is what is the name of this pull request, and this could be a sprint. It could be anything, for example. But let's try something. Let's try something descriptive. Let's say build new future to include new paragraph. That's it. That's a simple title, and it's recommended to keep your title short and very concise so people can just read it and know what exactly the pull request is about. But then if you want to go into details as to what exactly you did, any considerations, any notes you want to leave, you can then write that inside your description here. And we can visually see side by side what are the changes that we are comparing. So this is the main branch, this is the future branch that we are. These are the changes that have been made so far. This is the main branch that doesn't have these changes. This is the main branch that doesn't have these changes here. So I'm going to do that, and I can now create a pull request. So the pull request has been created, and because this is my repository, I can choose to merge the branch, merge the pull request if I want to. Usually, this is the default type of merge we are going to work with. Let me not go into that so I don't confuse us. But usually, it's a simple merge pull request, which is when I merge this pull request, Git is going to copy the commit that I made on the future branch, and as well as create a new commit that says that I am merging changes from future one branch into main branch. So we are going to have two commits created. We are going to have the commit, sorry, that already existed on future one branch, which is this commit that added the new paragraph. But in addition to whatever commit is here, let's say I had 10 commits inside this future branch, Git is also going to create a new commit. What is that commit going to be? is going to state that I copied these changes from future one into main branch. So this was the time when this content was made. So it's always going to be one commit plus the commits that you already have for that future branch, for this specific branch that you're copying the code from into the main branch. So the way to do that is to merge the pull request. And once you do that, you can see that this is the title of the commit that Git is creating. This commit will be authored by me because this is my account I'm using to merge the pull request. And this is the title of the commit that Git is creating. This is the description of the commits. I can choose to remove this if I want to and just leave this. So what is this commit? Merge pull request 1 from devgenix future 1. That's the name of the commit. You can change it if you want to. Otherwise, go ahead and then merge. Now, once you have merged, you have the option to delete this branch if you no longer need it. But more importantly, you can revert the changes. Let's say it was a mistake and this code introduced bugs into my system. I can simply just once I click on revert, it's going to create a new pull request. And what would that pull request do? It's going to remove the code that I just merged from the main branch and bring it back into the future branch. Just remove it away from the main branch. That's what it's going to do. But we don't need to do that right now. But then you can see this is a new commit that Git has created. Now, when we go to code, you can seamlessly switch branches here. You can see that for our style.css and our index.html, where those changes were made, we have a new commit called added new paragraph. And that is the commit that was created at the time that we made those changes. So you can inspect those commits by clicking on commit here. So this is a commit from that future branch, but this is now the commit that Git created when it made the changes from the future one branch into the main branch. So when we go to our code, and this is main branch now, go to style.css, we can see those changes that were in future one branch and now inside the main branch here. So this is a typical example. Now, remember that on our laptop here, if we switch to main branch,
since it is so. Yeah.
so I mentioned that you can switch by clicking here, but more importantly, you can also switch by using terminal by doing git checkout, the name of the branch that you want to check out, you want to check into. So that will be main, and this now enters the main branch. So this is main branch, and visually we can see that Git is always syncing with the remote branch. So it already knows that there are two commits to the main branch that we don't have on our main branch here on our laptop, on this local main branch on our laptop. For example, if you go to styles, those changes are not yet here because we did the pull, we merged the pull request on GitHub. It created those commits on GitHub, but we don't have that on our laptop. So we can do that by just clicking on this, and to simply just merge it, to just copy everything from GitHub and then merge that into our laptop here. But you can also do it from terminal if you want to. Now, the reason why I always like using terminal is because it gives you control over what you're doing, and it helps you know what exactly is going on. So you always use GUI, this interface here, or this here actually. If you come here, you can see sync new changes, and once you click on this, it will do the same thing. It will now pull those changes from remote origin on GitHub into your laptop. So I can click here and that will do it. I can click here and that will do it. Well, we are going to, right now, we are going to use terminal to do that. So for us to pull from remote into our laptop using terminal, I would use git pull. I can simply just do this actually. But for the first time you are pulling from your origin to your laptop, you sometimes require more than that, which is Git asking you what kind of pull should I do. So you don't need to have those commands in your head actually. Just do Git pull actually. And if Git decides that doesn't understand how to merge the changes, it would ask you. If not, it would just merge it. So now that is done, you can see that this is synced. Also here, we have that cleared. And now inside our style.css, those changes have now been copied over here. So you can see this is a commit that was made here. and then this is the commit, sorry, where this code was brought into the main branch. So now let's look at creating a branch locally. Remember that we first created a branch on GitHub, and then we checked out into the branch
One.
locally. Let's look at
As
creating
we
a
said.
branch on our laptop and then pushing that branch to GitHub. So to do that, you can simply just do git branch, which is telling, and then
Okay, let me just
b,
wait for him to
sorry,
pass.
um, sorry, you can do git branch or just do git b actually, but let's use git. Sorry, I'm mixing the commands up. Just do git branch and then the name of the branch that you want to create. That's one way to do it. You can also use git checkout and then the name of the branch. But what the checkout command does is there has to be a branch. The branch has to be existing. If I want to switch from main branch now into future one branch, I can just do git checkout future one, and then it switches into that branch. But if I do git checkout future three, I guess the error that there's nothing like future three known to git because there's no branch like that. But I can merge both git branch that which would create the branch but not check out into the branch. So if I do git branch future 2, git will simply create a future 2 branch, but I have to manually now switch into the branch myself by either coming here and switching into future 2. So this is what is on my local host, this is what is on GitHub origin. Or
Mr. Nehemiah?
yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you. At the moment, I know some of the members might be exhausted, so I just wanted to know if there is anyone with a question. You're free,
Okay.
please, to raise up your hand and unmute. Then you utter out the question you have. It. Anyone with a question? If you're like shy in terms of asking, just tap into the chat box and then type in your question. Anyone? Anyone with a question or you didn't understand anything? Feel free to ask.
Does that mean I taught so good that everybody understood everything I said?
Possibly. I understand Mr. Nasasira is within us, is
If
with
you don't
us.
have any questions, just use an emoji to react, so I can do that. I was actually very explanatory, and you don't have any questions. If you don't have any questions, just use the reaction. I can do that. All is fine. I can continue.
Anyone with any question? Maybe there is none. We can proceed if so. But in case there is anyone, just feel free to unmute and ask. Just feel free. Unmute and
All
ask.
right.
Yeah, we can proceed.
All right. Thank you. So we don't have a lot of time, so I'm quickly going to maybe not speed over, but just quickly go ahead to wrap up. So yeah,
Muted.
let me know once you can see my screen. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Please continue. It's fine.
All right. So now let's resume from this. Remember I mentioned that I can use the git branch command to create a new branch. I can also do that from here. So just click here, create a new branch, and create a new branch, or create a new branch from, and then I'll select what is the base branch I want to create it from. Let's say future one, and then that the branch name, and then to create a new branch for me. Remember that the git branch command would simply just create the branch, or it would not switch your code base into that branch. But if I want to switch, I would have to do git, or cannot do git checkout and do future 2. So this checked out into future 2 branch, and I'm currently on future 2 branch. But what if I want to create a new branch and switch into that branch immediately? Then I can do git checkout hyphen b to tell you that I am creating a new branch, and then let's create a new branch called future 3. So this created a branch and then switched into that branch. That's what this did. And now this is done. and I made changes to, now let's add a new feature. For example, let's create a section, and let's say this section is
You can just
let me not create a
stop
single
from that
developer.
tomato. If you use a tomato, I mean an onion, cut it whole and use it. They claim onions.
Contains
They
a column,
they absorb
and so
any
we can now
any gases or
add a
whatever
style
it is
to
within the air.
switch, to give this a new section. So now if we come back to here and refresh, we have a section here. So let's continue. Now we've created something on feature theory, and we can come here and we can stage the file. Now, if I just want to commit the change for a single, sorry, excuse, for a single file like this, I can first of all do that with HTML. So this is a staged file, and enter a commit to say created section in index.html, for example. And when I commit, it's only going to commit the file that is staged, which is the index.html file I just finished doing that. And then for the style, I can now say, oh, I created the style for new section. And that does it. So now you can see publish branch, and that's because this branch is only on my laptop and is not on GitHub. So for me to, I cannot just do git push and it will simply just push there. It has to publish this branch as well as all the commits that has been on this branch to GitHub. Remember that if you come to GitHub here and go to branches, we only have these two branches on GitHub here, main and future one. So now I want to push future 3 there. So I'm going to use this to push the changes via the GUI here so that you can see that. And then for future 2 branch, we are going to use the terminal so that you can also see how to push on terminal. So I can either use this or I can click on this small icon here. They are both the same thing. It will publish the branch to GitHub. So let's go ahead and do this. And it has done that. And we have the option to create a pull request right inside GitHub here if we need to do that by clicking on this. And I can now create a pull request here. Select the base, select the main, just like we saw on GitHub, set the title and give a description, and then create a pull request. I can do that right inside VS Code without going to GitHub. So I never have to leave my code over to GitHub. So we don't want to create a pull request yet. So, but let's refresh and see if our feature theory branch is here. So yeah, we have our feature theory branch here. And if we open it up and check our index.html file, we would see the new section that is here. But once we switch to feature 1 branch, for example, we see that that change is not here. And also in the main branch, that change is also not here. It's only in future theory branch. So now let's look at making some other changes in this section. Remember, this is future theory. So let's switch to future 2. So I come here, I click on future 2, and I switch to future 2. Remember, this is not here. So I'm going to use it to demonstrate 2 things, which is we've just pushed to GitHub from a new branch via the GUI here. Now I'm going to demonstrate pushing via the terminal. But also, I'm going to cause something called a merge conflict, which happens when 2 developers or 2 or more people work on the same file, but more importantly, work sometimes on the same line. So the same space has been changed by 2 developers. So once 2 of them get to GitHub and you try to create a pull request, you will see that there's a merge conflict. So future theory, remember that future theory, we had a new section created here. So I am going to copy this code, for example, and we are going to switch to future 2 branch like this. And I am also going to create a new section here. And because I am creating that inside the same place, it's going to cause a merge conflict by the time I push the both of them to GitHub and I try to create a pull request. So let's start. So let's say this section contains a lists. And let's create let's use p tags. And now let's actually create a list. So li for item 1, item 2, 3. I think that's enough. So now we have a list actually, and let's come back to our style.css and let's create a let's create styling actually for it. Let's just go with whatever GitHub Copilot gives us. And so if we come back to our code here, these are the previous states, and we refresh, we have something like this. Now we've created this. Now let's commit. Let's first stage this commit. Git add. So because I want to stage all of them, both the index.html file and the style.css file all at once, I can just do, those are the only files that are changed like this. I can simply just do git add full stop, and that's all. But alternatively, I can also just commit from here, like stage them here, and then push from here. Any combination you want to do, all like Git and all works. But I want to do that from here. So git add, that stages the file. And now I want to create a new commit message here. And let's see, I created a section with lists. And now remember that this branch has not been there, so I can publish from here, but we want to use terminal. So I am going to do git push, which is the command you would use if you want to push changes from your local to GitHub. But then Git is going to tell me that this branch has no upstream branch, which is feature 2 doesn't exist on GitHub. That's the upstream. So it is not tracking anything from, it doesn't have any branch on GitHub that is tracking changes from currently. So what would it do instead? I would have to set it to upstream origin future 2, which is tell GitHub to create a branch called future 2 on GitHub. And so it would link future 2 locally as my branch here to future 2 on GitHub as the remote origin. So I would copy this command. Remember, you don't have to remember this in your head. It will always be here basically. And then this. So this will do that, and I have a new branch called Future 2 on GitHub, and I will just set to sync with my Future 2 branch locally. And now once I go to GitHub and go to view all branches, I see that there is Future 2 branch here. So now we have a new Future 2 branch here. Let's look at the issues of resolving merge conflicts. If you have merge conflicts come up, for example. So let's go to pull request. Now, both Future 3 and Future 2 has changes. And we can create a pull request against any, and any, I mean any branch. So let's look at, before we merge into main, we cannot, it's cumbersome to first of all create a pull request from Future 2 into main. And after doing that, we create from Future 3 into main. So instead, we would create a pull request from Future 3 into Future 2, which is merge their two contents together. And together as one, we'll now create a new pull request from Future 2 into main. So let's click on this. Note that in case you don't see this, you can also just do that by creating new pull request here and select the main branch, the base branch, which is the branch you want to put new code into. Where do I want to copy changes into? That's your base branch. So we want to copy changes into Future 2 from Future 3. So we select this. And we have our merge conflict. And so we see can't merge automatically. So that means GitHub cannot automatically just resolve it because there are clashes affecting the same line of code. So now let's create the pull request, and then we'll now see how to resolve the pull request. So let's say here we changed section to contain list. Now always note that your your titles, your commit messages should be descriptive enough so that anybody who looks at it understands what was going on at the point when you made that commit or when you created that pull request. So always make sure that they are short and descriptive. So in this, because in Future 2, we already created a section. In Future 3, we created a section, but then we added a list. So I'm saying change section to contain list instead. So now these, let's go ahead, and we've not finished creating it. So this, and then create a pull request. So now once that is done, GitHub will tell us that these cannot be merged because they are conflicting files in both index.html and style.css. Now we can resolve this merge conflict in two ways. We can do it directly on GitHub. Sometimes that works, but sometimes for more complex merge conflicts, you have to do it in in your terminal here in your laptop. And you can always do that by checking out the pull request. So the way you can check out into a branch, you can also check out into a pull request. And to do that, you can simply just go to code here, copy this like this, go to your terminal, paste it here, and enter. So this would then um, you now have the content of what is currently on your pull request here. And our index.html, we see that the changes here are the changes from future theory because that's the branch that we are copying changes from into here. So let's come back to how we can resolve our merge conflicts. This is viewing command line instructions, which is how we can resolve this on our laptop locally if we want to. So we can either do that here, or we can open it in GitHub Desktop if you have the GitHub Desktop application, or we can try to resolve the merge conflicts directly on GitHub here. I'm going to recommend that you try to resolve merge conflicts locally as much as possible because it helps you see much better what are the changes that you want to add and you want to remove or not. So how do we resolve merge conflicts locally? So if you look at this, you would see clone the repository. We already have the repository locally on our laptop, and then git pull origin future 2, which is check out into future 2. So let's do that actually. Let's check out into future 2. The general rule of thumb is check out into the branch that is the base branch, which is future 2. This is the place we want to merge our code from future 3 into future 2. So check out into future 2. Sorry, be on future 2 first. Now check out into the branch that you are copying the code from, which is future 3. Okay, I think I'm confusing you. Scrap it, sorry. On your future 2 branch, make sure your future 2 branch is up to date, which is the branch that you want to copy changes into. As long as you are sure that the branch on your laptop here is up to date. So if we enter future 2, for example, I would make sure that my future 2 branch is up to date. And Git, I can do that by doing git pull so that it will check GitHub and see if there are any changes that are on GitHub that is not inside my current local branch. But I already see that it's up to date. Now that's fine. I'm going to check out into the branch that I am making the changes that has the newest changes. That is future 3. Again, I also want to make sure that this branch is up to date. Now, this branch is up to date. What do I want to do? I want to merge the changes that are inside future 2 into my future TV branch. I want to merge changes from the base branch, which is the branch that I am copying changes from, the branch that has been created. I'm done with that. I'm now going to GitHub. Remember that this pull request is created because I want to merge commits from future 3 into future 2. But the problem is that the code in future 2 and the code in future 3 are clashing, they are colliding. So the best way to resolve it is go to future 3, copy everything from future 2 into future 3. We call that a merge. So merge all the content of future 2 into future 3. Once you are done, push once you do that, commit and then push back to GitHub. Once you do that, GitHub will now compare and see that the commit that was in future 2 is now in future 3. So it recognizes that this conflict has been merged and the state of the code we had in future 2 is also in future 3. So, but we have new commits, that's the newest code I want to merge. So it's now allowing you to merge that. The merge conflict will be resolved. So again, the merge conflict is the commits that are in future 2 are clashing with the
Like
state of the code for the commit in future 2 is clashing with what in future 3. So the best way to do it is I want to get all the commits from future 2 and put that into future 3. And once that is done, I would create a new commit stating that, oh, I have merged this thing. All the commits from future 2 is now in future 3, and I can now push to GitHub. So when GitHub sees that the commits that we made in future 2 is in future 3 with some other new commits, it recognizes that there's no more merge conflict, and then you can now merge the code. So I'm inside future 3. I'm going to do git merge future 2. And Git is now going to show me what are the merge conflicts, what are the things that are colliding that it could not resolve. And remember that that's because in future 2 we had a section, but we didn't have lists. We didn't have any list there actually. We had this section contains a column. This was in future 2. In future 3, we changed that to this section contains a list, and then we added certain list here actually. So this is the incoming change from future 2, sorry, where we had those old code. In future 3, we had a list already. In future 2, we had a column. So it's now you can choose accept the current change, which is the change that we currently have before. Accept incoming change, which is override what is currently here with the change that is coming from future 2 into future 3. Accept both changes, which is keep the both of them. Lastly, I can compare the changes to see side by side what are the things that changed. So I can see here that what we changed is future 2 is going to override, removed this section contains a column, and future 3 replace it with this. So these are the changes that are here. So what do we want to do exactly? Now that's up to us. So I can now look at, oh, I'm going to start by deleting this line, deleting this line, and deleting this line. So I can see that which one do I want to keep? Do I want to keep contains a column or contains a list? I want to keep contains a list. So I'm going to delete this. And now this is what I want to keep. This has been done. Now I'm going to go to the next point here. And again, we have conflicts from here. But which one do I want to keep? If I want to just simply override it here, I can just click on accept incoming change and to just override that. Control Z will go back to what it is. If I want to keep what is already existing, which is locally on my laptop here, I can keep it here. It's going to discard what is coming from future. Um, what is coming from future 2 is going to override that. But if I want to keep the both of them, accept both changes, it's going to now merge the both of them like this, and I can just go ahead with that. I'm fine with keeping the both of them, so that is done. So now once that is done, I'm now going to I'm going to stage these two files because again, they have been modified. I'm going to do git add, and now this has staged the files, and now I can just simply do this. They already created a simple commit message for me and commit it and push the changes. So now this has been pushed, and once I come to my repository, I see new merge 2 theory and my merge conflict is resolved. So this is simulating a case where a different developer worked on something else, and you both are trying to merge both of them together and the merge conflict. You have to decide which is the code we are going to keep. If you are the one who is the project manager, for example, you are going to decide, oh, we don't need this code. We've already worked on it here, for example, or we need it. Let's keep this here. What I already worked on is no longer important. So I remove my own. Then once you agree on what to be kept, you simply just modify it, stage, create a commit, and then push. And now this is resolved. So I can now go ahead and then merge my pull request. I don't want to keep this. I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to merge. So now this is going to merge feature 3. Sorry, merge feature 2. Sorry. This is going to merge the changes from feature 3 into feature 2. And then once that is done, we can now create a pull request from feature 2 into the main branch. So the main branch has the latest changes. Now, another point where this might be relevant is if you have a development server, a staging environment, for example, where you have a branch called main, a branch called development or staging. Now, let's say feature 3 is the branch where I built a new feature. I would always merge into the development branch first so that we can test out what is going on in our staging environment, our development environment, which is like a replica of what users are currently seeing, except it's just private to us alone within the company, within the project. I want to check it out, test it out, it is fine, it's okay. Then we can now create a pull request from our development or staging branch into the main branch. And now we can now have those features available to users. So now this has been merged. I can now come to pull request, and we see that feature 2 had recent changes. So I can just easily use here to create a pull request. And base branch is main. I want to keep it as main. So again, I'm going to say, what do we call this now? Remember that main doesn't have sections. So it's coming for the very first time to the main branch. So say, build section with lists and goods user interface as UI. Now that is done, I'm going to now create the pull request. There's no merge conflicts here. And then I'm now going to go ahead once it is done and merge it. So I'm going to delete this, merge. So now this has been merged. And when I come back here, we have, this is the latest commit from the merge we just did. And this is the file that were affected. So this was the last commit on this file also, and that has been done. So now in our feature 3, it is up to date because we merged it here. But then when we switch to feature 2, remember that we pulled, we merged changes here. So feature 2 has the latest version from GitHub. And we can also switch to main, and now we can now pull all those changes that have been pushed into main and sync that with our local environment here. And that is it. So we have a clean working tree now. We do git status to check. On branch main, everything is clean. If you also come here to look at it, you can see everything here is also clean. And this is your commit history of the first commit you made, the changes in creating pull requests, where you entered into it. Over pretty much the basic commands that you are going to use in using Git day to day. You're only going to ever need advanced commands if you run into certain issues. I like to tinker a lot, and I'll advise that as much as possible, don't be afraid to break things. Always, as long as you always know that there's Control Z for you, you can undo. But more importantly, Git is like a senior brother to Control Z, so you can always find a way to. For example, if I want to, I'm on main branch now. Let's say we made a mistake by ever merging those pull requests here, and users are complaining that, oh, there's a bug here, and I want to revert to a previous commit where that bug was not there. So Sorry, let me close it up. Come to Git source control. Let me use Git length here. So you can use Git length. It's also a nice visual UI for you to be able to see what you're going on. And I already have it here at Git length inspect. And sorry, let me reduce it a little bit. These are the files that have been changed so far. These are the this is a nice graph. These are too much actually. We don't need all of that. But yeah, let's say I want to now switch back into a previous commit where I did not have that bug. I can do git log, or I can come to GitHub, go to commits like this, find the specific commit. Let's say I want to switch back to this point where I added a new paragraph here. I can come here, copy the SHA this for this commit here. I can choose also browse what the repository looked like at the point where we made this commit by just clicking on this button here. And now this is what the repository looked like at the time this commit was made. I can see what was there. I can confirm that, oh, this bug was not here at this point. So I can come back here. If you do git log also, you can see all of this information. To see more, just click enter, enter, enter. So you get. But then we've already copied the specific one. If you didn't copy it on GitHub, you can also come here and just select the particular one you want and copy it. Let's say we are done with that. To close this, press Q, and that closes it. And we want to check out into Git checkout, and that. So checkout allows you to check out into both branches and commits. Now you can mental meet them. You can discard any commit you make because you're in a commit, you're not in a branch. When you switch out of this branch without saving it, it's going to remove that. So I just want to inspect what the repository looked like at this moment. If I come back here, go to my index.html file, this is it. We don't have the sections here because this is the point when this is what the repository looked like at the point we made that commit to add the paragraph, and this is what the paragraph looked like. So I can from here create a new branch. If I want to spin out into a new branch, for example, now we are going advanced. You can just follow this instruction here, git and the name of a new branch. Or you can just simply undo this stuff, what we are doing here by doing git switch hyphen, and you go back to the branch where you were on before originally. Also, and again, we want to override what was on GitHub. So this last one I'm going to talk about quickly. We can just do a force push from here. What a force push is going to do is, if I come to GitHub, sorry, I switch to the main branch because I'm in a detached states here. It should load faster, please. Can't wait. But I can, if I do a force push from a specific commit, what it's going to do is it's going to override the content or the commit history we have on GitHub with the current history you are on. So at this point if we do git log, it will only show us the history of where we are in currently, actually added new paragraph here. Before this commit, these were the only commit we had made so far. So if I do a force push from here, git push hyphen f, that's a force push, it's going to override the content of the history on GitHub with what is here, for example. And that is not recommended. You should only do that if extremely necessary. But let's say I want to undo something that was mistakenly pushed to production from those commits up. Remember, I can create a new branch by doing git switch C. Once I create a new branch, I can now from that branch create a new pull request and merge that into main. So main will now have the content of what this repository looked like, so that we avoid that bug or whatever it was that is there. But this is just an example of letting you know how powerful Git is and how there is almost nothing that you want to be able to do as long as Git is already tracking your repository and you always remember to stage and commit your files regularly as you're working on them, that you won't be able to do. So from here on, it's it's up to you. This covers the basic of what you can do with Git, getting started to collaborate with somebody else, make a pull request, update your local from GitHub, create a new branch, push that branch to GitHub, and all of that. This covers it basically, and a little bit more intermediate. But then anything you need from here, you can always just go online, search for how to do something, and then get help on how to do that, or use an LLM for example, see how to do that, and then apply it. So um, thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to clear this now. I'm going to close this too. And thank you. So also you can continue with that repository I shared earlier on to go in depth. It covers down to intermediates as much, all the way down to week 2. If you look at how the content is structured, and then just use that as a reference point whenever you need help, whenever you need to understand a certain concept once again. So thank you very much, guys, and I hope we learned something today. If you have any question here at this point, please just let me know in the chat, or I think you can just raise your hand and then be given the opportunity to speak. So nobody has any question.
You can do it. I think everyone is fine. Maybe.
Oh wow. Okay.
Maybe you can ask them. Maybe you can ask them questions.
Ah, that's nice. All right. If is anybody who can answer, I would like somebody to explain the concept of what merging, sorry, resolving image conflicts is. Anyone? So if I did that much of a good job and we really understand, I think that is very recent. We just finished covering it now. So anybody will do that. If you are too shy to speak, you can just drop that in the chat. Send a message in the chat, and yeah, we can actually just see it from there. But if not, you can just go ahead to speak. Nobody.
Thank you. I think from my side, basically, I was over and on. I don't know whether at some stage you shall have a repeat of this session, just a request, in case for others who might not have been understanding also.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think Frank
actually,
is.
I have no problem with it. It's just Mr. Emmanuel. Mr. Nehemiah actually is the one to tell us when he's ready, when he's free, and then yeah.
No, actually, I think if he's sharing the recording, you can do that. Was it the recording he asked for or something else?
He wanted another session. The recording, I've been doing the recording, but I think it might be faulty a bit. The background sounds and kind of stuff.
Okay, another session. Ah, all right. Yeah, I think I'm always open to that. Frank, um, we can talk about that and then have another section later on. All right. So I think everyone, for those of us who understood, this is a very good introduction. I saw Frank has pinned the repository I mentioned about in the chat, so you can always get a reference to that to go over the basics from the scratch up to the point where we just finished discussing right now, and you can then continue from there. Well, I am very, very happy to have been here and to speak about. We would see about on that section actually. I always be very happy to come back and go over it again.
Mr. Nehemiah,
Yeah.
would you basically the rest of the guys don't know you. You can tell us about yourself such that we get to know. If possible, you
Oh,
share your LinkedIn details or X details such that guys can follow you. You never know,
oh, all
in case
right,
they're having
all right,
questions,
all
they can
right.
follow you. Your yeah.
Okay, sure. So I introduced myself earlier on. My name is Nehemiah Emmanuel. I am from Nigeria. I am in Nigeria currently, so I am actually very excited. Um, I am currently a student ambassador for Microsoft, where I school. So I school at Miva University. It's a online university here in Nigeria, a private university in Nigeria. After I transferred from my previous tertiary institution, um, I'm currently studying software engineering at Miva, and I have a range of experience. I got into tech pretty much from around 2019. 2019 actually, I think is where I started my career, and up from then up until now, that's about 5 years of experience. I've been able to work across a number of industries, mostly SaaS companies, especially but in the space of commerce, e-commerce, web scraping, fintech, more recently, artificial intelligence and machine learning. So currently, I'm founding a startup called Academics. It's an AI platform meant for student academic success that shapes how students are able to learn, collaborate with other people, engage with their study materials, and manage their academic responsibilities to achieve academic success. So it's you can go to academics.com to access it. I will drop a link to that. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, academics. Sorry. So yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Nehemiah. Let me drop a link to my LinkedIn here. Or you can also reach me on Twitter, x.com/Phoenix, or as a more direct means of communication, you can reach me on WhatsApp here. So those are any ways basically you can reach out to me, ask any questions you need to ask, and I'll be able to provide help. Thank you.
There's actually another question. Which languages do you basically base in? How are you? Do you like have expertise in?
Oh, Python. So Python is where I got started with PHP first, and then from 2020 I switched over to using Python. So I've been using Python from 2020. So I have more proficiency in the air. And as at 2022, I picked up JavaScript, mostly for front end, and it was just a little bit because I'm mostly a back-end engineer, so I work back-end and cloud. I think they are both hand in hands together, and much of the roles I've been involved in has to do with um, you owning your tasks, owning responsibility. So you don't just do backend, you do backend, you do infrastructure, you're a solution architect. So it has given me a very good range of experience in being able to go across from the first stage to the last stage in the software development lifecycle. So early, late last year, sorry, I decided to go full stack. So apart from just knowing basic JavaScript, I was able to pursue that. So I'm proficient with Next.js and TypeScript for front end. And for back end Python, I use Fast API, Django, or Flask, basically, any of them.
Wow, that's really nice. And then in the meeting right now, we are having some tech enthusiasts, people who want to indulge in tech too much. So obviously, it would be nice if you gave them some encouraging words. What pushed you? What techniques did you use to get that far? Because the in within us there, my man there is actually clapping. Mr. Bennett, I can see him over there. And the rest, let me hope having my man, think, yeah, Mr. Jonat, Balubula, big man. Can you please unmute and say hi at least? He's my buddy, actually, a very long term friend called Balubula Jonat. Hope he's able to
Uh,
unmute. I think he's preparing even for exams. He's at Makerere University doing
oh,
information
okay.
systems and technology. Yeah, basically, most of the members here, as I was trying to tell you, they're tech enthusiasts. They are guys who are upcoming in tech, you understand? So you, as someone
Okay.
who has gotten some good experience, you can give them some words of encouragement and really what they can do, to prevent that procrastination and, that kind of stuff, cramming code, learning things the wrong way and all that.
All right. Yeah, I understand. I understand that. So I always like love the opportunity to be able to do this because I believe that if you're able to hear from people's experiences and have someone who you can always talk to about something like this, it allows you to fast track your career in terms of knowing what to avoid, how best actually to go across. Using my own experiences, for example, before I got started in at the point sorry, when I got started in 2019, I actually started in 2018, but I don't count that because I spent 2018 and 2019, and I think it was towards the end of 2019 I actually settled on. I actually want to pursue a career in software engineering, but before then, I was moving around in a circle in the sense that I didn't know exactly what I wanted to pursue. So I tried a couple of things. I tried design, I tried motion design, I tried doing PowerPoint, advanced PowerPoint. And I even when I got started in programming, I just got admitted into the university to study electronics and computer engineering at my former institution. And I saw that we are going to use Python, we are going to use C++ and Java in my second year of school. So while I was in first year, I decided to learn ahead of what we're going to do by learning Python, by learning C++ and Java. And it's not healthy to be able to like have so many things that you are pursuing all at once. It makes you feel like you are actually making progress, but in reality you are moving around in circles without like focusing on one thing that you are going to be able to be very good at going forward. So I was able to meet someone who advised me to I used to brag then that by the time I'm graduating, I want to have learned 7 to 9 programming languages and be very good at them. When I came to realize at that point that that is pointless. There's no that's not an achievement to brag about because it means which one would you master? Which one do you know how to apply? Which one are you very good at that you can always like pick up and then use? So it doesn't matter the languages you are learning. It's just programming languages, programming frameworks are just tools that you pick up when you need to do something. So pick one language that you want to focus on, or one career path if it's not programming language, if it's not programming, sorry, and just focus on it. So I would advise that you build your career in a T fashion. A T fashion means that you have a broad range of experience across um, related fields to what you are doing. But you have one or two major fields basically that you are really, really focused on. So, give an example, if you are a video editor, it's very nice if you have experience in graphic design. It's very nice if you have experience probably doing Photoshop before, because those are skills that you're going to apply when you are also doing video editing. It's also good if you have experience in audio editing, for example. But it doesn't mean that you should simultaneously chase a full career in design, as well as a full career in audio editing, as well as a full career in video editing. You are going to burn out yourself very, very fast. So while it's good to have a broad range of experience, you know little about this, little about this, little about this. If I see you tomorrow and I want to hire you for a job and I ask you, what are you good at and what can you do for me? What is that one thing or that those two things, for example, that you know that you are very confident that you can do, and that's what you can do very well. Those are the things that you should be able to focus on. And so when it comes to that one thing, those two things you've narrowed down on working on, I would advise that you grow by one, documenting your progress really. Either you have someone, for example, who keeps you accountable, um, doing challenges like 100 days of code or 100 days of video editing is not just for the clout of it, it's to help you stay consistent and to help you it's to help you discipline yourself basically and be consistent, show up every day, every day, every day basically. May not be every day initially, basically, maybe twice in a week, it may be once in a week. But the fact that there's a schedule and there's a consistency to how you do something helps you build up the skill over time. And then pick up projects. The best way to learn is project-based learning, to be honest. So especially for developers, it's very easy to fall into the loop of watching tutorials, reading articles on how to do this thing, how to do this thing, how to do this thing, but you don't actually ever sit down to now do it yourself. So project-based learning allows you to start doing something, and I would recommend that you do a personal project, something that you really want to do. You want to build a portfolio website. You want to build a clone of Facebook, for example. It doesn't matter if 200 persons have done it before. You are gaining the experience for the first time. Those people have done it, gain their own experience. You are doing it to gain your own experience. So pick that one personal project and then grow in it. You will see that as you're working on it, those things that you need to learn, you will come across them. You would go online, you would find articles, you would watch videos, you would take that knowledge and come back and then apply it. So that's what project learning helps you to do. It helps you grow in the project. So then you would pick up something you even know that you didn't know you would have been able to do before, for example. And it helps you know that there's nothing you cannot do actually, as long as you have the time. Really, as long as you have the time basically and you sit down to be able to do it, there's nothing you cannot learn, there's nothing you cannot do. So don't roam around, don't chase a plethora of skills all at once. um Pick the one thing that you want to learn. It's fine also to pick up related skills, to learn little things that would complement that one thing that you are doing. But generally, have a T career progression. Be good at one thing, focus on it basically, and then grow with it. And then use project-based learning. If you don't want to do project-based learning, find free internships, but find something that motivates you, that one thing that you are always working on, that you can stay consistent to, and then grow with it. It's going to give you very, very good experience to work with. And we know that to get a job, you need to gain experience. But to gain experience, you need to get a job. So the best way to actually get the experience for free is find a personal project or find a free internship, volunteer somewhere basically, or something that keeps you motivated that you can work on and you're always like disciplined to do. And in addition, build in public. Build in public means that you could be a very, very good video editor, but if I need the skills of a video editor, I would go and look for somebody who I know because I know that that person is a video editor. So if I don't know that you're a video editor, for example, I wouldn't be able to reach out to you. I cannot, the universe cannot just tell me that you're a video editor, so I should go and meet you. So what Building Public does is it allows people gain trust in you, see a progression basically of how far you have come, and also know importantly what you are doing, so they can, if I have a need for something your skill in the future, I can always remember that, oh, there's that one guy I used to see on Twitter who posts about design, who regularly posts about design, and I would contact you for a job or contact you to do a project for me. But if you don't put yourself out there, nobody would know what you are doing, nobody will know the amazing thing you are building, nobody will know the amazing skill that you have. So build in public. Utilize platforms like LinkedIn, Twitter. You have a community that you are in where you can share your post in, contribute to the community. It helps you gain visibility and gain the trust of people to continue. And I believe that if you are able to stay on this path, shouldn't be long actually if you're looking for a job that you're working on basically before you're able to get a job. And then from there on actually I think your career progression just goes forward.
Wow, thank you. I think Mr.
Okay.
Nasasra also has something to tell us. Mr. Nasasra, are you there? Nasasira? Is there anyone with a question? Anyone members? I can see some members joined in late. Anyone with any question? Mr. Nasasira?
My guys,
Yes, yes, yes. Welcome in, brother. Say something. Say something.
Mr. Nehemiah, I don't know how I can describe this. I'm so happy so I joined you guys a bit late. I didn't know even you are on. I had first tapping around Frank to ask if you have already joined, but the guy told me that he joined even past me. I saw it. I was so surprised because I have at least worked up or held some session with some Nigerian niggas, and it takes time. You find that if you say at 8 someone is coming in at 8:30, and when he joins you find that no internet. But surprising, I've seen a steady internet. I don't know if you for you today you never used what, there's a way how you guys normally call it. How do you call it, the kind of network you use in Nigeria, around Nigeria, around Ghana, those places? The
Yeah.
internet is always up, and but today I've met a stable internet with Mr. Nehemiah. Mr. Nehemiah, we are so amazed of your sessions. I saw the guys were requesting for the next push, and me too.
Yeah.
I'm requesting for the next push because I've seen a lot of things. For example, we talked about we were talking about resolving merge conflicts.
Yeah.
That's still one of the questions me too I can't address. So my guys should put the hands up, but I know the speed, the way you are pulling and committing. What I know, my guy, according to my community and the way I know them, I know how they are now. Let them not deceive that they learn or they got. And what I know, they can write the CSS, the HTML, but committing it to GitHub and those pull requests and whatever, I know they still need like 3 sessions for them to be able to pull and commit. I'm so sure about it because I've worked with them, I've moved with them from the start until I handed over to Frank. I know with Frank, if we utilize these guys, both physical and online, I know we shall be having what you call a boozing community. Let's give a round of applause and thumbs up to this gentleman for the wonderful session. At least he has managed to pull up for us to this very evening. They have a community. You may be wondering how I came to meet him, requesting for a section with my community. But one time, Ben Kai posted a session because they were supposed to be having what called it was a boot camp around Git and GitHub. I logged in, I registered, and even they gave us some travel kind of whatever, like travel whatever fundings and whatever's. So when you convert the Nila currencies to Ugandan things, you find that now when you see the money they have given you from Uganda to Nigeria, you see that the money couldn't make you even move from Kampala to Mbarara. You get? You find that hey, I was surprised. But at the end of the day, they have come up with what we call a WhatsApp group where now we are all merging. Surprising landing in, I saw Nehemiah and I just near seeing the face, I knew that the face could be a take what? A take face. Directly I went into his inbox. I said, sir, what do you do exactly? Can you have a session with my community? Wow, the guy never rejected, the guy never said no. The guy said, that's what I like. Wow. I said, wow. I invoked my guy who is a tech lead at our campus. That is Mr. Frank. He designed all those posters I'm sending to you.
Oh,
The guy is a tech guru. He's a very good designer. He's a very good. Me too. I give him respect behind everything we are doing. I know by the time he finish up his term and he is handing over to the next guy, I know he's going to leave an impact behind. Mr. Frank tend to get into the inbox of Nehemiah. Nehemiah has a lot of guys surrounding him. Right now, I've heard that he's one of the best guys in Python. Guy, we need to bring Python back to our community. I know Python is the way to go. We are talking about AI, we are talking about machine learning, but without knowing Python, we can't push anything. It's high time we get the crew around him We land in with him. By the time we are concluding, at least we can build a certain project. Are we going to do a social challenge? That's a
Obviously,
fact.
yeah, obviously we have to do a solution challenge. And about Python, how do you see if we organized a study jam? Yeah,
Yeah.
study jam of Python, whereby at least at the end of the session we having someone who is able at least knows some good fundamentals of Python, can write utilize methods, functions, play around with variables.
Yeah, and as he has said, we need to learn with projects. If at all you guys are not getting a chance to do internships and whatever, it's high time you start learning with what? With projects. We are going to utilize him. We're gonna fix him with some minutes, like 1 hour per maybe month or what per, based on his schedule. You get? So that we can always rotate with him as we build different communities worldwide. He's a very good guy. He has some guys, good guys, like in his when he was making some like inviting some guys to do collaborate on tour when he was teaching. I saw him putting Sophia. I remember during my time, I hosted Sophia here, and I met Sophia. By then, he was a Microsoft ambassador. You get
Oh,
during those during
okay.
those times. You get, and I came to know Sophia just via my Gmail because he used to interact on Gmail. Oh, name was what can you do? Oh, he said that I can do this and do this. Oh, can I host in my community and say hi to us? The lady said yes, and have been joining her sessions on YouTube. She's a very good YouTuber. If at all you can get onto her YouTube handle. She's very good. When I saw her putting her, it was like, now I'm on the right track. So it's the high time as a community, you have what you call a tech gurus next to you. You get? And there are
Yeah.
a lot of guys. There is some guys like the jobbers. I saw jobbers up there a lot. It's high time we utilize those guys so that we can have the best within what? Within our communities. Then on another thing, I don't know, Mr. Nehemiah, what exactly? Like, I heard you telling my guys as the way you told them that they should have one thing they concentrate on as they are building themselves instead of tapping whichever side, and at the end of the day, find that you can't do anything.
Yeah.
I remember one of my tech guys that was Mr. He's a Python, one of the Python contributors worldwide. One time we told me like such a comment, the one you have put up. So I'm hearing the same comment from you and having heard it from somewhere. Now I'm so sure I'm on the right what? We are on the right move. Mr. Frank, I remember I told you to, there's something I told you to design. I don't know how far you have gone with it.
Designing what?
This speaker request form.
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah. That's simple,
as,
That can be done in
as
just 1 minute.
as far as I know, that Nehemiah has a lot of tech gurus surrounding him. He can be still of a help of linking up with such a tech gurus so that we can build a community or a club which can rotate or which can stand within the community and talk about themselves. If at all you were watching what Nehemiah was doing, I don't know in our communities how many guys do we have who can run like all such a commits and pull ups and whatnot. That's the fact.
Very few, obviously, very few.
That's the fact. But we need to now to build like such a confidence. You come, let me say you're invited in a certain tech community, you can stand and elaborate whichever thing you are talking about and know how to debug what you in case you reach at the next standard and you are failing, right? But for as I told you, for us to achieve that, we need to have continuous what learning. Mr. Nehemiah, I think we have utilized you so much tonight. As the guys have requested, we are looking forward to host you again here. I think we shall be happy to welcome you again. We are going to harmonize with Frank, and we see the next day we can tap in if it's favorable for you. We shall be so excited to have you on board once again. I really thank you for the great session. session, the attendees. I saw like plus attendees on the panel on the page. It was a very good turn up because I recall during the online sessions we told you could have 10, 5, and even those 5 could at the end of the day could end up with the speaker. But at least so far 10 guys still logged in. That's a very good pull up.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
if you can keep on building, you know, as guys start learning and knowing what they are doing, we shall be having more guys tapping in because they know that right now some guys pulled up because they were fearing the language which the guy was using. But the main times or the more the time the guy logs in, now let the word will commit and he or she is able to commit or do a pull and bring some collaborators into his or project. The next time, guys, what I know every day, when you say we have a session around this, many guys will be what? Will be tapping in. So it's high time we try to utilize such a guys. We try to learn, like, I don't know how many guys have Git and GitHub over installed onto their laptops, but from the session, this guy every day we're gonna be with assignments. The next time it comes, you guys must be able to present an assignment, you get, so that you will be able to address just the issues you guys will be getting during your sessions. Instead of him coming here, he sings the whatever he sings, and every day it becomes like a what? A song. No. We need to run with what? With questions, projects, and what? And so on. Whoever has logged in, I see Mr. Monde Moses, I see Mr. Masereka Bennett. Who else can I see on the panel? I saw Elijah's, I saw Sumaya's. I don't know if that is your AI. I saw Jonard, and so on and so on. Comfort and so on of the guys who have managed to tap in. I'm really thankful for your attendance tonight because I remember I was once the take like the club head at a certain point at UICT. So we need to hand it over to the biggest boy, 174. I'm so much excited, guys, on board tonight. We look forward to host you again, Mr. Nehemiah. I'm so I can hand over the mic back to Frank and say have a goodbye and the last comments to us. Tell us what next we have on board as we pull up. I don't know what time is Nigeria right now because I know you guys you have just tapped in at around 7. Could be around 7
No,
right now
it's 18 minutes after 8 currently.
on our end it is 18 minutes past what? Past 10. You
Yeah.
see almost 2 hours ahead of each other. What I know, most of my guys are feeling sleepy. They haven't bugged at around, meaning it is high time we should show them that they can go ahead and work at around midnight, past midnight. We find that guys are coding at what? Past hours. As the tech guy, you must be able to learn past what? Past your normal what? Your normal schedule if you want to achieve what you want. Thank you, Mr. Nehemiah. My support is just one. We are looking forward to have more than 1,000 sessions with you. How did my guys are doing what? Show up and we learn together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I do have another meeting I have to get into by in 10 minutes. So um, thank you, Nasira. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry. I really don't know how to pronounce it so that I don't mispronounce it. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Frank. Thank you,
Uh,
everyone
one of
else.
one of
Um,
the fun facts which I can say this very evening, having still called Nehemiah, Nehemiah on my side, my granddad was called Nehemiah. So it's like now I take you like one of my judges, right? Because my judge was called Nehemiah Glance, so, right? So it's the name is common to me because it's a clan name or it's a culture name within my what within my community.
yeah,
So
yeah. I don't think
it,
you come across Nehemiah very often. I've only ever met two other persons in my life that answer Nehemiah. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nehemiah. Actually, Thank you so much actually for keeping on time, because the first time I felt like calling you, but it was really fine. I think members, we can adjourn the meeting. I've tried recording the session, but I don't know whether the recording is fine. I will try putting it on on our YouTube channel. It's just GTG UICT.
Yes, let everyone follow our YouTube channel. We have different socials that we normally post